Welcome to World History Lesson 11. Indian Empire. Explain the rise of Indian culture. Identify how India adapted to the different cultural present. Identify important political, spiritual, and military leaders. Identify the contributions of the Indian civilization. India, a subcontinent located in the south of Asia, is one of the oldest civilizations known to mankind. Throughout its long history, India has been invaded several times from the surrounding peoples. While the Himalayan mountains protected India from invasions in the north, the Himalayas possess many mountain passes, including the famous Khyber Pass in the Hindu Kush Mountains, which made it easy for armies to reach India. Through these many routes, invading armies brought their cultures and ideas into India, and from this forced collaboration, modern India emerged. The Gupta Empire. Until about AD 320, many groups ruled India. A leader named Chandragupta I took control of many of these groups and established a new dynasty known as the Gupta dynasty. The Gupta's empire controlled much of the land around the Ganges River valley. As the influence of the Guptas spread, more and more territory came under their control, expanding into territory of western part of India. Trade expanded as access to the ports on the east and west coasts of India came under the Gupta rule. There were many cultural contributions made during Gupta rule as the arts and the sciences flourished. Contributions to civilization. Gupta leadership led to great achievements in literature, art, mathematics, and science. Great temples with elaborate carvings and murals were built. Indian mathematicians originated the concept of zero and had a symbol for infinity. They also developed the base 10 decimal system, which we still use today. These numerals are now called Arabic numerals because the Gupta concept of numerals was carried to the Middle East by merchants and scholars, then to Europe by the Arabs. During the Gupta dynasty, Indian doctors had pioneered the use of herbs and other remedies to treat illness. India provided free hospitals, and their doctors were the first to give injections and vaccinate people against smallpox, almost 1,000 years before this practice was used in Europe. Indian surgeons sterilized their cutting tools, set broken bones, and repaired injured ears and noses using plastic surgery techniques. Indian writers collected and recorded fables and folktales in the Sanskrit language. These Indian fables were carried west to Persia, Egypt, and Greece. Many of these tales traveled to Arabia and became part of the Arabian Nights. The greatest Gupta poet and playwright was Kalidasa, whose most famous play, Shakuntala, was about a king who marries an orphan. India became the center of learning, and much of its culture spread throughout Eastern Asia. The Gupta's dynasty was a long period of peace and prosperity throughout India. This is one of the reasons why the Gupta period is often called India's Golden Age. Hinduism. Two religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, played a part in the shaping of Indian culture. Unlike most other major religions, Hinduism had no single founder and no single sacred text. Hinduism is a collection of religious beliefs that developed over thousands of years and merging of cultures. Hindus worship many gods. Each god represents a form of the universal soul known as Brahman. In order to be one with the universal soul, followers of Hinduism must purify their souls by performing religious duties and living righteously. Soul purification requires many lifetimes. Each person's soul experiences rebirths or reincarnations. In each lifetime, a person can come closer to achieving union with the universal soul by obeying the law of karma. Karma includes all the events of a person's life that affect his or her fate in the next life. People who live righteously earn good karma and are rewarded by reincarnation into a higher caste or class in their next life. Those who do evil deeds acquire bad karma and are reborn into a lower caste or class or lower life form. When an individual soul finally achieves oneness with the universal soul, he or she is released from the cycle of rebirth. Hindu teachings are recorded in sacred texts known as the Vedas or Upanishads. These sacred books have stories of heroic tales and moral lessons. Throughout India's history, these teachings have influenced the way of life of its people. Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, was born to a high-ranking family in northeast India about 566 BC. He became known as the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. The Buddha taught that the way to happiness was to avoid attachment to the material pleasures of life, and suffering was caused by desire. A person could eliminate desire by following the Eightfold Path of righteous living: right views, right aspirations, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right contemplation. By living righteously, a follower of the Buddha could escape the endless cycle of reincarnation. When people rid themselves of their attachment to worldly pleasures, their souls can enter a spiritual state of peace known as nirvana. By 300 BC, the Buddhist teaching spread throughout India and many other parts of Asia. Muslim invasion of India. Around AD 550, the power of the Gupta family finally ended. Nomadic invaders from Central Asia, known as the White Huns, overthrew the empire. In AD 606, at the age of 16, Harsha, a distant relative of the Gupta king, succeeded in rebuilding much of the Gupta empire during his 41 years of power. However, he left no heirs, and the empire fell apart after his death in AD 647. India was again divided into many independent warring kingdoms. By the 8th century, the Muslims extended their power and spread their religion, Islam, into southern Asia. For more than 1,000 years, Muslim invaders crossed through India's northwest mountain passes and extended their control as far south as the Deccan Plateau. The Muslim conquest of India influenced India's political and cultural development. The Turkish Muslim conquest of northern India led to the destruction of many Buddhist and Hindu temples and monasteries. During these invasions, many Hindus and Buddhists were killed, and cities were destroyed or looted. Islamic leaders drove the Buddhists from India but failed to force out the Hindus. The forced expulsion of Buddhism is why Buddhism started in India, but it mainly exists in the rest of Asia. Under Muslim rule, many Indians willingly or were forcibly converted to the Islamic religion. Hindu and Muslim differences. Hinduism was an established older faith with many sacred books and was polytheistic, meaning they believed in many gods and goddesses. Islam, a newer religion, had a single sacred book called the Quran. Followers of Islam were monotheistic, believers in one God, like Judaism and Christianity. The statues and carvings of gods and goddesses in Hindu temples were offensive to Muslims who worshipped only one God. While Hindus celebrated religious festivals with music and dance, Muslims condemned this practice as their faith placed emphasis on solemn prayer. Hindus accepted differences in caste statuses, while Muslims taught the equality of all believers before God and had no religious hierarchy. Over a long period of time, there was a cultural blending or merging of both Hindu and Muslim customs. A new language, Urdu, resulted from the blending of Persian, Arabic, and Hindu. Delhi Sultans ruled India from 1206 to 1526. An all-powerful Muslim ruler or sultan named Aibak conquered India's entire northern plains and established his capital city at the city of Delhi. Many other cities were built later as sultans extended Islamic power to southern India. Trade between India and the rest of the Islamic world flourished, as well as the transferring knowledge and customs. New ideas were brought to and from India. Muslim rulers condemned Hinduism as idol worship, persecuted Hindus, and tried to encourage Indians to convert to the Islamic faith. Despite these efforts, Hinduism survived as the primary religion of India. By the 14th century, the Delhi Sultanate became weak and was soon divided into smaller independent states, which were ruled by Muslim rulers. In 1398, a Mongol warrior named Tamerlane attacked and destroyed Delhi, slaughtering thousands of people, both Hindus and Muslims. Mongolian invasions and rivalries among its leaders weakened the Delhi Sultan's empire and led to its decline after 320 years. The Mughal Empire. By 1526, Mongol invaders led by Babur marched through the mountain passes of northern India and the city of Delhi. Babur founded the Mughal dynasty. Mughal is a Persian word for Mongol. which lasted from 1526 to 1857. Babur was a Muslim and descendant of the famous Mongol warriors Genghis Khan and Tamerlane. Under the leadership of the early Mughal rulers, both Hindu and Muslim tradition blended together and eventually became the Mughal culture. Akbar the Great, the grandson of Babur, conquered additional territory in India. The area he conquered stretched from the Himalayas to the Deccan Plateau. Although a Muslim, Akbar encouraged religious harmony through tolerance of the many faiths in India, including Hindus, Buddhists, and Christians. He won support through his policy of tolerance. Many converted to Islam, but India maintained its Hindu traditions, and the majority of its people practiced the Hindu religion. Fun fact. History records that Akbar could not read or write, and he was dyslexic. Akbar still held a great love for art and learning, though. Akbar collected beautifully written manuscripts and had many writers, musicians, painters, and scholars, like great musician Tanzan and thinker Birbal, live in his palace. Akbar was known to vigorously pursue new ideas and knowledge, and in conquering territories, he frequently absorbed new information into the libraries he had built. Akbar was as skilled a negotiator as he was a military leader. He was able to make alliances with the many diverse people within his empire. Akbar and his heirs strengthened their empire in many ways, such as making codes of law that applied equally to all of his people. He also ended the practice of taxing non-Muslims and appointed many Hindus to high government positions. The Mughals encouraged learning, especially in the arts, architecture, and literature. The Mughal Empire lasted until the mid-1800s. It began to decline when frequent wars, heavy taxes, and tension between Muslims and Hindus increased. As the Mughal Empire weakened, European nations seeking new markets and goods gained control of India. Mughal influence. The Mughals built mosques, Muslim houses of worship, palaces, and tombs. The Taj Mahal is a magnificent marble building built by a Mughal emperor as his wife's tomb. The tomb has white marble spires and domes etched with beautiful patterns decorated with gold, silver, and precious jewels. It stands as perhaps the greatest monument of the Mughal Empire. Many Mughal rulers encouraged the combining of Hindu and Muslim traditions in literature and art. Hindu works of literature such as the Ramayana and Mahabharata were translated into the Mughal language. Indian and Persian influences are demonstrated in much Mughal art. Painting includes portraits, nature scenes, and depictions from religious and literary works. What's next? Take the time to go back and review the lesson on your own. After your review, complete the lesson review for the lesson and submit for grading. Remember, your submission should follow all the rules for standard written English. All submissions must be written in your own words and sources used cited at the end. How to cite sources in APA format. When you reference a source within an APA-style paper, whether it is using a direct quote, repurposing an image, or simply referring to an idea or theory, you should insert an in-text citation, the author's surname and the date of publication within parentheses, straight after a direct quote. The URL citationmachine.net will assist you in creating citations.